Legacies are built. They're forged by constant excellence, by those that endlessly innovate. But victory does not come easily. Plan, prepare, strategize. Finely tune your team. Be the visionary that drives them to success. Your decisions will determine their fate. Reshape the season on your terms.
Yep, so today F1 Manager 23 has been officially announced, the second management F1 game from Frontier Devs. We don't know the exact release date yet, it just says summer 2023 as a release window, but I assume it's going to be around August, I would say, once again, like last year's first entry into the franchise with F1 Manager 22, because it just makes sense. That's when the summer break is for Formula 1. It seems like a good time to put out a new F1 game, and it gives it enough of a gap between the other official F1 game by Codemasters and EA. And in a press release they've dropped today, they talk about even deeper management systems with more dramatic racing, even greater commitment to authenticity, as fans are invited to become an F1 team principal, make their mark, and lead their chosen team all the way to the top, driving every decision both on and off the track, as well as get even closer to the 2023 Formula 1 Championship action with the brand new race replay mode, which will allow aspiring team principals to rewrite key moments from throughout the 23 race season. Additionally, also returning is career mode, where players will enjoy a suite of highly requested feature developments, so hopefully new ones we've been asking, and adding new dimensions to the sporting drama at every turn. So, you know, also hopefully improvements to systems that were already there, and new ones as well, and you're going to be seeing some of that in this video. And we're going to kick things off by talking about a brand new deeper pit stop management in the game. You know, it was very limited on last year's game. You know, you could do some training, but in my opinion, and a lot of people's opinions, it was a bit wish-washy. You know, there wasn't really any way to directly really improve the pit stops that much, and there wasn't really much going on with the rest of the team in that kind of area when it comes to building back up the car and that area of the race. So now, new to 2023 is the role of a sporting director who will lead the development of the players' pit crew throughout each season, aiming to increase the speed of the players' pit stops or reduce the risk of any mistakes which can make the difference in vital strategy windows. And there's a whole new training area of the game when it comes to your crew, what they're doing. So in red, you've got the standard pit stop drills. In purple, you've got gym training. And then in turquoise or blue, you've got the car building. And then you've also got rest days as well. So you've actually got to try and balance to not fatigue out your pit crew, and at the same time get them well rested, but also training properly to actually be at the best peak performance so that they can actually do the best pit stop in the race. I'm hoping this means we actually see more tangible kind of improvements with the pit stops, and we kind of feel like we are actually making a difference. And I like the fact that there's just another person that we need to manage and hire. That sporting director just gives us more kind of plates to spin when it comes to, you know, contracts or managing our money under the cost cap of F1. You know, having more positions to fill and hire just adds that extra dynamic that we have to think about. And along with pit stop improvements, now in the new game there are going to be pit stop mistakes as well, as a result maybe of your pit crew fatiguing or just general kind of, you know, error that you do see in real life sometimes as things don't go right. And so that's going to be decisive moments when, you know, a wheel stuck, kind of not coming off properly, or a wheel gun just not, you know, making the new tire go on faster. And so that's going to be a point where you could, you know, lose a couple of positions, could lose a whole race win, and vice versa, you could win one if the AI suffer that mistake. The next new feature in the game is going to be an expanded series simulation, so players can now track the results of up-and-coming talent from the Formula 2 and Formula 3 paddocks, with their race form also affecting how each driver develops as they plot their own path into Formula 1. So this is pretty big, because in the last game we did have that massive driver market of F2 and F3 drivers, but there was no way to really know how they were doing, who looked promising, and now we can actually see tangible simulated results of F2, of F3 in this kind of virtual world in the game. And, you know, it's going to be different player to player, we've been told. So there's going to be, you know, an actual reason to look into these results, into this data, and see, okay, this guy seems like an up and become a star. We should really, kind of scout him and keep an eye on him, how he does in F2. And then when it comes to the point where we want to maybe sign him, then that's the choice we make based off the results we've seen. I mentioned there also about race form as well. So now race form matters a bit more to driver confidence, which is a brand new thing in the game that you'll see. Each driver has their own confidence level, and I'm going to liken this very much to the focus level that you see in the EA F1 games. That's the kind of same thing as focus, driver confidence to actually perform to their best abilities. So along with driver confidence, the usual driver tactics of trying to, actually race people in the middle of the race have been expanded to balance the risk and rewards of actually, trying to go for a move. And then also there is a new ERS battle assist option, which will support you for overtaking and defensive strategies once a rival is within DRS range. So that just gives you a little bit more, I feel like, pinpoint control of like, okay, now we're in an overtaking region or defensive region. Now let's try and do something about it, rather than constantly just going, oh, we're just doing the ERS for the whole lap, and then if we get the overtake, we get it. Now it's a point of, like you see in the EA F1 game when you're driving, or just in real life, it's easy to catch someone. It's a lot more difficult to actually overtake, but that moment, that moment of overtaking when you're in the DRS region becomes more of an event with the ERS assist now. And the driver tactics expanding, with the risk and reward, will affect tyre temperatures, which this season plays a key role in strategic considerations, because both the surface and the carcass temperature of the tyre will change throughout the race depending on varying factors such as ambient temperature and also the driver's own abilities, affecting the tyre degradation levels and influencing the likelihood of mistake. On last year's game, it was a little bit of aesthetics talking about the tyre temperatures, when in reality, really, tyre temps didn't matter that much and didn't affect things too much, really. But now, tyre temps, just like we see in the EA F1 game, there's going to be an eternal carcass temperature and the surface temperature, and that will also, factor into the ambient temperature of the track. So we actually got told that in some instances, some tracks or some scenarios, you might actually have to on purpose tell the driver to push to keep tyre temperatures up, rather than actually trying to make sure they don't get too high. You actually might have to tell them, no, you need to try and push more, because right now the temperature isn't enough, so you need to push harder, and then vice versa, cool the tyres down. Or, let's say the rain starts coming down, maybe it's a little bit damp and getting colder, you're going to have to try and keep the tyres in a good working range to still work, otherwise you have to come in earlier for intermediates, let's say. And that's going to tie into a revised driver development. So now drivers can develop their skills through us choosing designated development focus and improving improve several areas depending on what we've selected, and once they've actually gained the experience enough to actually warrant those upgrades in terms of their rating and abilities. But at the same time now, what wasn't there in last year's game is older drivers will see their development rate fade over time. So we're actually going to see now proper fading of drivers. It won't be, maybe massively dramatic, but it will be realistic enough where you're going to see the older drivers actually start to lose some ratings, and they're not going to just be absolutely awesome still into real late ages. And at the same time, they'll need to continually deliver strong performances to ensure that they don't actually regress further. So older drivers, basically, if they don't keep performing, like let's say Fernando Alonso, if they start to slip up a little bit, they're going to lose more rating than they necessarily would do if they were performing at a level that Fernando Alonso is still performing at, because we've seen Fernando Alonso in real life, he's still right up there with his sharp skills. So you've got to say his rating wouldn't really, if you really translated that into the game, his rating wouldn't be dropping as much as maybe other drivers. Let's say, Raikkonen towards the end of his career, maybe, now in the Alfa Romeo situation, wasn't really flourishing as much. So his rating probably would have started to go down. That's just the way I'm likening it to, or other older drivers that are maybe bowed out. And speaking about a new gen and crop of drivers coming on to the grid, that would obviously mean then some contracts to be done. And now in this year's game, there are going to be some changes to how the contract system works. Drivers and staff now can be recruited for the beginning of the following season. So that adds a bit more realism and also flexibility in how we can build their teams in the future. You know, it was quite frustrating that when you sign someone, it had to be always immediately. You know, let's say, you know, a driver's not performing and you do want to oust him. You may not want that instant impact. It's more of a case of, okay, like in real life, the writing's on the wall and you know, put out a press release of like, yo, you know, this driver's not going to continue with this anymore and we want a new guy and we're going to sign him and he's going to start for next season. So it's a lot more realistic in that way, and also allows us to plan financially for it, I guess, because you're not going to be paying him the salary straight away. You're not having to fire the driver straight away, which is always an annoyance. You always have to, you know, pay out the buyout and then, you know, pay the salary, whereas now it could just be a case of, oh, we're not renewing this guy's contract and we're going to sign this new driver at the start of next season. So no money lost there. It's just the fact that we're actually pre-planning it basically ahead of time. Overall, also, they're saying we've got improved racing simulation. So we've got the 23 rounds and now the 6 F1 sprint events that we see in real life. So on last year's game, there were no sprint races. It was just the Grand Prix itself. Now we have the sprints in the game as well. So even more for you to think about on those race weekends. And then also in general, the racing simulation is better, with racing lines shifting from corner to corner as tactics encourage drivers to attempt more audacious overtaking maneuvers. F1 Manager 2023's incident systems dial up authenticity by replicating tense wheel-to-wheel clashes and dramatic turn 1 collisions, bringing every lap to life. So we questioned the developers about this point as well in a kind of preview event we got, and they did specify, you know, in terms of the racing lines and getting stuck in DRS trains, they have tried to improve that as much as they can in terms of actually going for different lines and actually going from, you know, having lines corner to corner, depending on the tactic you're choosing for overtaking or defensive work. Your AI driver is going to try and change and kind of match what you're telling them to do, and hopefully there are going to be less situations where for a lot of the race you guys are just stuck in a train basically. And then in terms of authenticity of wheel-to-wheel clashes and turn 1 collisions, that's great, because I feel like there maybe wasn't as many, you know, really tense wheel-to-wheel battles that were prolonged. And then in terms of crashes, they were sometimes a bit comical in last year's game sometimes, and the animations were very, very similar. So I'm hoping that this means that in this year's game is going to be a bit more, you know, just a bit different, a bit more realistic in terms of those animations. And like the blurb said, turn 1 collisions, you know, on lap 1, maybe having a bit more tension in the air with that, because we all know lap 1 can be devastating for that. And then finally, like I kind of alluded to at the start of the video when we were talking about the general kind of things they were announcing, we've got a new mode to play with apart from career mode, which is called Race Replay. So Race Replay, they say, is an exciting new game mode coming to F1 Manager 2023, which will bring players closer to every twist and turn in the 2023 Formula 1 Grand Prix Championship, allowing them to rewrite key moments. And we'll have more to show, you know, we'll know more later down the line. So that's all we're getting for now. So rewriting key moments from the real season. So those are all the new details coming out today from Frontier about F1 Manager 2023 and what I got to kind of preview an event last week and see this gameplay that you've been seeing on screen. And it looked really, really decent. I think the new tweaks to pit crews and stuff like that I really like, and also just hearing from the devs talk about actually listening to player feedback about the actual racing gameplay and trying to make that more enjoyable with the different racing lines and having a bit more kind of, I don't know, assistance, I guess, to try and make overtakes and make strategies work with the ERS assist, and then having tire temperatures and tire wear come into factor a little bit more now, with the temperatures actually really properly mattering, and the confidence level of the drivers I think is a big one, because I think last year on F1 Manager 22 there wasn't really that much in the way of form. Like, you know, you know, drivers were doing well, but then they could suddenly just not do well and then just come back and bounce back straight away. I think the driver confidence, having that kind of focus level like we have in the EA F1 games, is really big to just kind of actually try and build on what you're seeing with your drivers. And then the contract system as well was a huge thing. That was a gripe of mine of not being able to pre-plan stuff basically better. So I really like that. There are still some other areas of the game that we need to kind of look into and see if they've been improved upon, and just generally also I need to wait to get hands-on to really tell if this is going to be a nice step forward from last year's game. But from what we're hearing so far, it does sound promising. They are listening to feedback from the players from last year, and there are some great new features that we didn't even ask for that are in the game that just improves that level of management in the game. So guys, if you have enjoyed the video, you've liked the gameplay, and you like what you see, then be sure to hit the like button. Let me know what you thought in the comments below. When you're around here, then do get subscribed for weekly Formula 1 content. I'll see you guys next time. Goodbye.